All right, welcome everyone. As people are continuing to join, I will kick off by introducing myself. My name is Daniel Porus and I'm Chief Commercial Officer at Legatics, and a big hello and welcome to the Legatics 2 webinar, which is the official launch of our second generation legal transaction management platform. I'm joined today by Legatics CEO Anthony Seale and our Head of Product, Ryan Turner. Both are former Magic Circle lawyers. Anthony was a banking and finance lawyer, Ryan corporate, and all of us are very passionate about providing lawyers and their clients with a better way to run legal transactions. Today, we're going to kick off with Anthony giving us a bit of background to our mission, a bit of background to Legatics 2 itself, and the evolution of transaction management and the direction that we're going with Legatics 2, with expanding into legal project management. Ryan will then jump in and show us a demonstration of Legatics 2 itself. And we then want to devote a good amount of time at the end for answering the questions that you have. So please do use the Q&A functionality throughout. And we will then at the end get to as many of those questions as we can. So let's jump straight in and I will hand over to Anthony.
Thank you very much, Daniel. So if I ask, why does Legatics exist? This is the answer that I give. I think we are here to accelerate progress by streamlining legal transactions. So it's my belief that lawyers do enormous good in the world, whether it's buying a business, building a hospital, financing a wind farm. Legal transactions make the world go around. Without law, without the legal structures that we have in place, society wouldn't exist as we know it. Businesses wouldn't exist as we know it. Schools, hospitals wouldn't get built. The problem that I see is that the practical delivery of legal transactions could be improved. Lawyers are excellent at understanding the legal nuances of case law, how to put contracts together, but the practical delivery of a legal transaction could be improved. So I believe we are here to help with that piece within legal transactions, to streamline them, to make them easier, to make them faster. And I think when we do that, we also make the lives of working lawyers, their clients, counterparties, much more enjoyable as well, because I think legal transactions can be difficult to work on. But when lawyers are getting back to the work that they want to do, perhaps that are connected with the original reason they became a lawyer for, then I think those lawyers are also much happier as well. So what does a legal transaction look like without any help from Legatics? Well, legal transactions are complex. They involve thousands and thousands of emails. They involve hundreds of documents. And people are always asking themselves, what's the latest version of the document? What do I need to do next on the transaction to drive it forwards? What's the client experience of this transaction in the digital world? Very often, this is project managed using enormous tables in Microsoft Word. That unfortunately is often the project management tool of choice for lawyers in very large tabular form. And it can be a junior lawyer's job, sometimes multiple junior lawyers' job, just to keep track of where a transaction is at any given moment. Legatics simplifies legal project management. So Legatics provides a central source of truth as to where the transaction is at. Everybody knows what the latest version of each document is. They all know what they need to do next to progress the transaction. We change the culture of the transaction into a game of hot potato. We allow processes that people hadn't necessarily thought of running synchronously to run synchronously, to finish a legal transaction faster, to deliver a better result for clients. And we automate many administrative tasks because we have a legal transaction in a structured manner. We can start to automate a number of things that junior lawyers were doing that they weren't enjoying quite often and were taking a significant amount of time. So we can make deals faster, we can make them more efficient, and we can give everyone transparency and clarity as to what needs to be done next on the transaction. So how do we do this? Well, we take anything that a lawyer would traditionally manage using a large table in Word and turn it into a digital list online that still looks actually like a bit of a table in Microsoft Word. That's intentional. We want to retain those familiar forms to help with adoption. But we put a lot of powerful project management and automation functionality behind that to enable those transactions to become more streamlined. Go next slide. This allows legal transactions to be managed in a single place. We can have a dashboard, we can have a view of the entire legal transaction. And with Legatics 2, there are so many more processes that we can capture, that we can display, that we can run on the deal, not just the closing process. And I think that gives clients a really clear view as to where their deal is at any given point in time. I think a law firm that presents this kind of view of a transaction is going to do a huge amount to impress clients. I think those transactions are going to be run much more efficiently. As I said, the breadth of what we can do now in terms of the number of processes, the number of blocks that appear on that overview screen that Ryan's going to show you later is just so much larger. So thinking about the evolution of Legatics, Legatics started as a tool for managing the conditions precedent process in financing transactions. I was a financing lawyer myself, and I built the original version of the platform out of my experience in that context. And I think it was very successful in that context because it was specific to what the lawyers were trying to do. A finance lawyer could look at that and say, that's me, that's how I work. You've really captured all the nuances as to what I do day to day. And as a result, I want to use this platform. I want to adopt it, and it's going to be right for me. We were asked to do more. So running conditions precedent processes wasn't enough. It was very clear to us that those items then make them go very naturally into a closing set or a transaction Bible. And also outside of a banking context, people would start to run documents lists. But everything in Legatics 1 was hard coded. All the columns were fixed. The structure of the transaction was very fixed. And it was also limited to largely those things around closing a legal transaction. Legatics 2 is a significant progression from this. It's actually a complete rewrite of the platform, and we've used that as an opportunity to bring in a huge level of flexibility, and we bring back that specificity as to specific use cases and providing things for people in specific practice areas by using a templating engine to retain what I think has made Legatics successful today. So we're calling this legal project management rather than legal transaction management, and the things you can do on Legatics 2 are much more numerous. So if we take a look at a few of those things, Legatics 2, I think, without running through every single one of those, speaks to every practice area within a law firm. So whether you're a tax lawyer creating a steps plan that you're then going to pass on to somebody for restructuring, whether you're a corporate lawyer running a warranty disclosure exercise, whether you're a regulatory lawyer running a large sort of regulatory submission, there's a use case for you. And I hope now that every lawyer within a law firm can look at that list and say, Legatics is for me. And the lawyers who were already using Legatics can say now that Legatics caters for many more things that I was tracking and project managing on my legal transaction than I have done to date with Legatics 1. So I'm really, really excited about Legatics 2. I think it is unique. I think it will cater for so many more use cases. And I think it retains what made Legatics 1 really, really special, which is being specific to what those lawyers in those practice areas want to do. So I'd be delighted now to hand over to Ryan, who's going to show us what that looks like.
Thanks, Anthony. And I think we're just going to really just get stuck into exactly what Legatics 2 is. And it just has so many exciting new features above and beyond Legatics 1, which quickly showed up on screen. But let's get straight into the demo once we get those slides sorted. So what you're going to see on screen now is what the platform looks like when you are creating a matter from the get-go. So at any time, and this is a key part of the platform. We put the control in the hands of the lawyers so that they can get started on deals at 10 o'clock at night, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, whenever that instruction comes in. And creating a matter is really simple. And what we're actually doing in the background here is starting to gather really helpful metadata about the matter, which we can drive back to you, the customer, to understand, look, how many private M&A deals have you got going? How many deals is Sally lawyer leading? How many times is the London office leaving the deals? And how many other offices are involved? And that's really simple to get started. But what we're going to do is take you into what a deal could look like when it's up and running. And this is kind of a standard M&A deal. And you can see Legatics is so much more than just the closing of a transaction, because a transaction is more than just closing. It's where's the regulatory approvals up to? How's the DD report? Where's the completion checklist going? And we enable this holistic view of how the entire transaction or your project is really coming along. And we're able to do this because we allow for multiple lists to be stored in Legatics. And like Anthony said, think of lists as those Word or Excel checklists. And you can start a list from so many different ways. The first option is an empty list, but no one really starts from the blank. And often people don't like to reinvent the wheel, and you don't have to do that in Legatics. You can start from an existing list, whether in your existing matter or in another matter. So if you've got a set way of working, go ahead, use it again in Legatics. But the template lists that Anthony touched on are the most exciting part of the platform, because they show what you can do with the power of the platform and the flexibility that you'll see. And in this case, what you can do is just so much more. So you could do a documents list, a checklist, a steps plan, or you could be a banking and finance lawyer, and our CP checklist and condition subsequent checklists are still there, but they've just been supercharged. You could be a corporate lawyer. You're appointing a director, incorporating a company, removing a director, all that basic work that needs to be done as part of a deal. Or you're doing project management, which is a big part of doing a transaction. How is local counsel going? You're doing an information request, or you're just storing the background documents to find them easier. And on the M&A side, well, there's just endless use cases there. It's such a time-consuming and complex process. We have lists for every M&A lawyer. And something that I did and actually used to do in Legatics was warranty disclosures. And we're going to show you just how you can get started with this in Legatics. So pretend I'm making this warranty disclosure. I want to hide the list while I'm making it so no one else can see what's going on. And that's important. Permissions I'll talk about later pervade the platform. They're everywhere. Now, this template isn't very built out, and there's a good reason for that. And that's because warranties, well, they're different depending on each deal. They sit in the schedule and agreement, and some poor junior has to go turn this text into structured rows and columns in Word. And this can take hours, if not days. With our import functions, you can do this so much simpler. We'll talk about Word table in a second, but in this case, we're going to import from legal text. And what you can do is copy and paste that legal text, and this could be warranties, conditions precedent, really any legal text. And using machine learning and a bit of pattern recognition, we can identify the subsections, the sections, the rows. You can split some of the sections, rows out by definition. And basically what you can do is turn that unstructured legal text into tabular data in the space of minutes, not hours. And the power of Legatics means that once these columns are set up, well, you've got so much flexibility. Do you need to rename the column? Go ahead and do that. Do you need to make it a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller? Well, that's fine. We want to enable people to change these lists because each project, each transaction is just a little bit different. And we want to give you that control. And you can do that with different column types too. So you might need multiple columns for comments or files or a status, or even just checkboxes. You can now change statuses in the click of a button. You're not manually writing that in Word. It's just so much simpler and so much better in Legatics. But the traditional way of working, the Word checklist, it's still there, but it's now become a way to convey information. And every list can be downloaded into a branded Word checklist. And this can be in your house style. But the difference here is it's not used to manage the transaction. It's used to give a quick summary update in case someone doesn't want to log in. But it's also a good way to see that we've taken this very manual process and made it so much better. And sometimes this is where people are going to start from, a Word table. And we have an importer that lets you take something like this, a pretty standard completion checklist, and turn it into one of our dynamic lists in a matter of seconds. So all I need to do is select import. from the menu, and the system can identify the tables in my checklist, and you can see it's identified it automatically. Set some of the sections and subsections, and once I'm happy with how the data looks, I can import it in. And this just really means that if people are using word tables but feel a bit unsure about moving to Legatics, well, they can do that in seconds, and they can get all the benefits of the platform, like seeing their subsections in a list view and seeing how to navigate just so much quicker than scrolling through a Word document. And the power of the list doesn't stop there, because you can sign documents in the platform. Every list comes with a dedicated signing view. And the whole idea of this is to take away that separate signing checklist that lawyers have and integrate the data and make it work together. So in this case, a bit of a built-out completion checklist, and I'm telling the system, look, I want to mark this for signing as a document being signed. I'm going to come to the signing view where I can start getting ready for closing. I can add the parties and the signatories to each document. I can understand who's signing what. If this changes with a minute to go, I can update that really quickly. If a senior needs to come in and check, have I got the signatories correct? They can do that. So you've got a lot of power to really get set up for your deal. And then once you are set up and it's time for completion, all these documents can be set off using our DocuSign integration and sent and signed through DocuSign. Our integration supports multiple accounts. So if you do have more than one DocuSign account with different signing settings, that's doable in Legatics. And so once you've got that all done, it's a really simple option. Send a DocuSign, and what we do here is we push all that data, the documents, the parties, the signatories, and it just means a lawyer doesn't have to start from scratch. They don't have to open an envelope, try to work out what documents need to go in, who's signing the documents, go back to the signing checklist. We've populated that automatically, all the roles, in this case parties, the signatories, they're sitting there. We can even push across a template email. If you've got signing instructions you want your lawyers to use, this will get added to every envelope they create from Legatics. Finally, once it gets sent, we move into the phase of sitting back, really, and watching signing come through. And this is the joys of Legatics, is this view, which is a bit limited in DocuSign, is much more rich in Legatics. You can see how each signatory is progressing. You can see who has and who hasn't signed. You can filter on that to really identify where things are up to. And in this case, well, no one's signed yet, but hey, Richard just did, and we can see that live and in real time in Legatics. And we know now, look, we probably have to go and chase Sally. Has Sally signed the document? No, she hasn't. Let's go give her a call. Hey, Sally, can you get the document signed? And just like that, we know Sally's done, but we're not quite there. We're still missing Sam. So we know we can use the filtering or even just scrolling, and there we go, signed, all ready to go. Once the documents are signed, you can bring those back into Legatics so all the other participants in the matter can see them. And once they are downloaded back from DocuSign, you've got a bunch of options to get that audit trail history directly from DocuSign, but in Legatics. So in this case, the envelope history, which is just a modal in DocuSign, now becomes a document. So you've got that rich audit history of what happened to the envelope. The certificate of completion sits there with the document and is available at any time. So that's signing, which is really exciting. We're looking forward to see what people do with it. Creating Bibles or closing sets is also really simple on the platform. Any list can be turned into a Bible, and this works in a similar way to how it worked in Legatics 1. So we hit the button, create a Bible, we can go in, and then we can edit this Bible. We can say, look, the sections should be a bit different. I want to rename things, move them around, get it ready to download. And what we can do is download the list into a zip folder. And what this allows us to do is include a Word index and also rename the files. And I used this to great extent when I was at A&O. It meant I could make Bibles in minutes, not hours. And it was everything hyperlinked, and I could send it off to the client, and it meant I just really got out of work a little bit earlier. Now, once that's done, what's really important as part of the deal is permissions, because this deal may be moving, people may be going in and out, and permissions work at so many levels. The first one is the list. So can people view, edit, delete, add rows? A lot of control, a lot of granular control for lawyers who need to control their deal. And then within the list itself, there's control everywhere, at the section level, at the column level, different permissions for different column types. For a file column, can someone upload a column, a document or not? For a row, who can view a row. And this just enables the platform to really be tailored to the specifics of every deal. So if it's data that's really confidential, it can be hidden from different people so they can't see it. Or you just want to say, look, agreed form, that status can only be set by me, because that's obviously a very important part of the deal. And you might need that element of control. And that's really what permissions give you, is control. But that is also a bit scary for some lawyers. And what we have is a view as feature where you can look at this and say, look, how does the platform now look to someone else? And you can see it looks a bit different. Some of the buttons are there, aren't there. The lists that we saw are gone because they don't have access to view it. So you can really have a different view for different people depending on their access rights and permissions, which is just really exciting and just goes a layer deeper than it did in Legatics 1. Now, finally, the audit trail is just whirring away in the background. And the joys of this just means that you're no longer relying on emails to serve as the record of who did what and when. The system tracks and manages when someone did an action in the platform, and this data is always downloadable as a CSV, so you've got a very detailed record of all the platform actions, so you can just be comfortable knowing that the platform is doing the work for you so that your lawyers are freed up to just do more valuable work. And then finally, the platform has an extensive help knowledge base. And these are lots of articles explaining how to use the platform, how to get started. We even have some PDF resources because we appreciate a lot of customers have intranets and need to explain to the users the benefits of the platform. And they're sitting there, and they're also available for clients to come in and say, why should I use Legatics? What's the benefit of it? So that's sitting there in the platform. The other one we do have is a request feature. We live on feedback, and we want your feedback. And this is a live roadmap, so you can see what's coming, what's planned, what's been released. And it also lets people submit ideas if they don't see them here. Because for us, we're building for lawyers, we're building for the users. And we really want people to come in, submit new ideas, because unless we get these ideas, we're going to make it a lot more difficult to transform your legal transactions. And that's what we're here to do. And we're looking forward to having you on board.
Thank you so much, Ryan and Anthony. Great to see some questions trickling in already. And please do keep them coming in. We've got a good amount of time now to address the questions. I'm going to kick off with one which I think we briefly sort of passed over on the slides. So to both Anthony and Ryan, this is obviously the Legatics 2. So there are, we do have the existing platform that's been around for a while. What are the key differentiators for Legatics 2 versus Legatics 1, and what have you seen that those who have used it to date have been most excited about?
Sure. So I think some of the key differentiators are that flexibility. So Legatics 1, the columns were hard coded. Legatics 2, the columns are entirely flexible. So there's so much more you can do with the platform in terms of the number of things you can create. Other features that we took the opportunity to add include being able to import from Word tables. For as much as when we started creating the software, we thought people might just use the import tool or create things starting in Legatics. I'm aware that there are still a huge number of tables still going around in law firms that are being used to project manage legal transactions, and being able to import them into Legatics to get started even faster is proving very useful for people as well. That signing view, being able to track by parties and signatories has been really important. And I think the permissioning in Legatics 2 is also much more granular. So we can have permissions starting at the whole list level. We can have them on the column level. We can have them at the row level. We can have them at the file level. We can have them at the file revision level. There's much more that we can do with those permissions and use cases that you can create as a result. So you could, for example, have a column that is internal comments that you just work on with some parties or within your law firm. And you could have another column which is for all party comments and make that much more broadly accessible using the comments permissioning functionality. You also have the ability to set permissions around a specific organization and team within the platform as well. So that enables us to do use cases that customers were asking for, like bid financings or competitive M&A contexts, where it isn't appropriate for the parties to see the existence of the other parties. The audit trail as well, we were asked, is it possible for other parties to see the audit trail other than the host? We now let them do that, and you can see a view of the audit trail that's suitable to you in accordance with your access control, and that helps counterparties get comfortable with the changes that have happened on the platform as well. We speeded up loading times. We've also simplified the design. We've made it cleaner. We've made it easier to use. We've included a lot of quite small sort of I don't know, ease of use and quality of life type improvements. For example, that you don't have to sort of go through different pages now to view a large checklist. We have an infinite scrolling system that makes that much more convenient for lawyers. And I think ease of use is never something that finishes within the platform. That's something that we're always working on. But I would say the biggest change is that flexibility and just the range of things that you can use Legatics 2 for that you couldn't use Legatics 1 for.
That's great. Thanks, Anthony. I think that leads on well, actually, to one of our questions that we've got here from our attendees. So one was, can actions be assigned to specific users as opposed to parties? Ryan, maybe that's one that you can.
And the answer is yes, and that's really exciting. That wasn't something available in Legatics 1, and it is now available in Legatics 2, and it's actually gone a layer deeper. So we have a hierarchy of roles, organizations, and then the users inside those organizations, and statuses can be applied to all 3 different levels. So you could apply a status to the lenders and get the whole lender group to say this is responsible for you, or it could just be Goldman Sachs within that lender group, or one person in Goldman Sachs. So you've got just a lot more flexibility at that status level than you did before.
That extends to the access control as well, which can now be on an individual level as well. So we had some perhaps larger financial institutions that would say, we're happy for these senior people to check a box to perhaps sign off on a line item, but we don't want to extend that access to all of the perhaps more junior people within that organization. So even within that organization now, we can control who signs off on something, say, on behalf of a financial institution.
Excellent, thank you. So we've got some further product-related questions, so let's start working through those. The first is a question from Richard saying, we presume that clients will have access via user rights management. Can we have tasks which are internal and some which are external?
Yeah, and that's exactly what the permission structure is designed to do. So you can add different users into the platform, set what organization they belong to. So say, for example, Goldman Sachs, all the Goldman Sachs users are there. You could give them access to one list and not the other. Within the list, like we showed before, you could say, look, this row is just not viewable by them. What we see people quite commonly doing is they have an internal comments column, and that's hidden to everyone but the internal legal team. And then there's more of an external comments column, which is viewable by more people in the list. So there's really a lot of granular control around who can see what and when they can see it. So a lot of control there. And we also find that clients really enjoy that dashboard view because it means that they can log in, see the dashboard, and then there's a button there for take action so that they know that there's something that they need to do that takes them to a filtered view of the list, and then they can just take action on the items that they are currently responsible for.
Thanks, Ryan. The next question we have is around, I think it's a further integrations question. So other than DocuSign, what other services are available?
So currently just DocuSign. I would encourage everyone to just jump into that live roadmap. I've got some ideas there for other integrations we could do. Like I said, we are a product company and we live and breathe feedback. So if there are other signing integrations you want to see, feel free to drop that through to us, either directly or using the portal that I showed before. One thing we are working on later this year is a wet ink signing tool to enable the wet ink process, which is still used by a number of customers and law firms, and just making that process so much smoother for lawyers. So really looking forward to bringing that out and getting it into the hands of lawyers.
Excellent, thank you, Ryan. One specifically around the signing integration. So we've got a question here from Alessandra. in relation to the signing integration with DocuSign, does it also auto-populate the colored signing tabs on the documents?
Yes, it does. So back in the list, there is a little tab that shows that the document has been marked for signing, and those colors update depending on the status of the document in DocuSign. So once it's, say, for example, signed and green, then the icon will go green as well.
Excellent. And we've got a question here from Philippe. How does it work with languages? So is it easy to get, for example, Portuguese and/or other languages being used within the platform?
Happy to answer that one. So the interface at the moment is only provided in English, but things like the import tool are largely agnostic as to the language that you put into them. So it is possible to use the platform in a variety of jurisdictions, with the content of the documents being in another language, with things that you put through the legal text import tool being in another language. But at the moment, the interface is only available in English. Again, happy to take feedback and help direct our product roadmap in that regard.
Excellent. Thank you, Anthony. Just a quick one that we can answer if anyone else is wondering and has joined late. We've had a question about, can we request a recording of the session? Everyone who has signed up for today's session will receive a recording of the session afterwards. So that will be available for you to watch back over, to share with colleagues who maybe weren't able to make it today. But please do also feel free to get in touch with us directly if you would like to dive in a bit more detail, set up if you're an existing customer, further trainings for your teams, or if you are interested in just understanding more how Legatics might be relevant to your firm, then we'd be delighted to organize a follow-up demo. Got one further one here on, can we elaborate, sorry, I'll just answer this one live. Can you elaborate on the changes in the data processing and information security framework? Where can we find the Legatics 2 security white paper?
So we've got a really brilliant information security white paper on Legatics 2 that covers a huge range of topics. I think it's about 50 pages long, but also written in a concise way. So that also contains details on who the sub-processors are and any changes in the sub-processors. We have a guide that sets out any key security differences between Legatics 1 and Legatics 2. The data itself is still hosted on AWS. We remove a subcontractor that was helping with server management. So hopefully that makes the procurement process a little bit easier with Legatics 2. In general, as the company's grown up and as we have looked to scale the back-end architecture to hit our level of ambition, which is to manage the world's legal transactions, we've taken more control of the architecture layer that's required to deliver that in the platform. Probably not appropriate for me to go through all of those changes, but I think if you are happy with the security posture of Legatics 1, I think you will also get happy with the security posture of Legatics 2, but appreciate that you might need to do a detailed information security review. And we've got an extensive information security white paper and also a summary document that explains the differences between Legatics 1 and Legatics 2 from both a security and a data protection perspective as well. And if you get in contact with a Legatics representative, then we'd be very happy to provide that to you and answer any further questions that you might have in that regard.
Thanks, Anthony. The next one here is from Amy, related to the Bibles or closing sets. So are they hyperlinked? Are the hyperlinked Bibles available offline, or would they need to zip and download the files?
It's a good question. What we see a number of customers doing is inviting their clients into the platform, and the Bible is always sitting there. So the link to the Bible is always available. It's something I actually quite often did when I was still practicing. I used Legatics 1 extensively as a lawyer, and I quite often got to the point of sending those links over to clients so that they could actually go and download those documents at any time, appreciating that quite often those file restrictions make it difficult to email it across. So yes, those can always be sent or available via link. And then as we showed in the demo, they can be zipped down and downloaded and sent across the traditional way.
That's something that we've seen evolve over time. I think in the traditional world, we used to see these enormous tomes of documents get printed out and sent to people. Then people started using CDs. Then laptops were produced without CD drives. Then people started using USB drives. And now they're quite often blocked by institutions as well. So having an online way to deliver the Bible to clients has become more and more important. So I'd recommend using the platform for that, but you can, of course, download that as a zip file and deliver that any way you like.
Excellent, thank you, Anthony. A question that's come up a couple of times is there single sign-on and multi-factor authentication?
Yes, and we strongly recommend turning it on. It gives you your users a cleaner sign-on experience. It gives you more control over the sign-on process as well. If you have any geographic restrictions or additional factor devices that are specifically organized, like in your organization, like sort of hardware tokens, then you can make use of them as well. You could have context-aware access control, so you control that depending on perhaps the device the access is coming from. But if anything, just for your users to make their sign-on experience more seamless, then we strongly recommend turning on SSO. All parties who are invited to the transaction are required to use at least an email verification code as multi-factor authentication when signing in. So there's a kind of minimum level of security that we just mandate across all of our legal transactions that are run on the platform, and that at least requires clients that could be quite a disparate group to ensure that they still have access to their corporate email account to receive a verification code, to put that into the platform to log in. And that helps us get around problems like not having access to the user database as to perhaps who's still working at a particular organization.
Excellent, thank you, Anthony.
One more thing on that. There was another bit that asked about the range of platforms. We support SAML 2, which is a very common single sign-on protocol. So basically most SSO providers will enable you to turn on that integration, whether you use Okta, a Microsoft product, or something else.
So while we're on the theme of single sign-on, someone has asked whether the SSO integration with DocuSign and Legatics is seamless.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So that's the joys of our integration. We pass through to your account. So any access to your DocuSign account is controlled by how you've set up DocuSign. And we've seen a number of customers have single sign-on on DocuSign. And so it means that when lawyers go and send documents to DocuSign, that process is really seamless to log in. It's send, verify, I'm already logged in through SSO, and off go the documents. So the joys of our approach of just connecting to your account does enable that process to be very seamless.
Ryan, would you like to talk a little bit about multiple DocuSign accounts, advanced and qualified signatures?
Yeah, sure. So as I alluded to on the demo, we do support the ability to connect multiple DocuSign accounts. So you may, for example, have a developer or demo DocuSign account that you use for training your users. That is able to be connected to Legatics, and they show up in our demo matters. So people can get comfortable with how the platform works. They can train in a safe environment. And then what you can also do is connect up one or more production accounts so that your users can use, say, your UK account to send documents if they're based in the UK, or you may have different EU accounts for the different signing requirements, whether it's advanced signing or qualified electronic signing. And so by the ability to connect up all these different accounts, you really enable signing to happen in any jurisdiction, no matter where you're based.
That's right. So we're integrating there with the DocuSign, with multiple law firm level DocuSign accounts, and the law firm will often have individual DocuSign licenses for their users, and those users are using their own DocuSign accounts there. So if you say have bought specific licenses for I don't know, advanced and qualified signing processes with DocuSign that are in use in European jurisdictions for certain users, then those users will be able to use their own accounts and be able to use that license within DocuSign for those kind of signing processes.
Thank you. So we have had a question here around whether we can expand on how the platform can be used for a competitive bid process that we discussed earlier, and around the permissioning. Anthony or Ryan, you want to pick that up and explain how some of the changes with Legatics 2 can assist with?
Yeah, sure. So you have the ability for parties not to be able to see each other in the platform. That means if they leave a comment, even if they leave a comment in, say, a column that doesn't have any access control applied to it, parties who can't see that particular organization won't be able to see that comment as well. They won't be able to see audit trail items that are related to that party. I get that could be quite a scary thing to do on a transaction, and the view as functionality can be very useful there in verifying that the access control settings that you've applied to your matter are correct. So you can view the matter as if you are another party on the legal transaction, and it will give you the view that they get of that transaction. And that should help you build confidence there. You can also, if you don't want to have sort of different parties, if it's very confidential working within the same list, you could think about other ways to do it. So you could even split out the things that people are doing. So you could apply access control on a module or on a list basis, so that you split out what those parties are doing at a higher level, so they're not working within the same list. It's really up to you in terms of how you'd like to work there.
Thanks, Anthony. So might move to a couple of less specifically product related questions that have come up. So one here from either Jan or Jan. Do we have any experience with resistance from counterparties getting used to using the platform, assuming that project management over the platform only makes sense if all parties involved agree to use it? So I'm happy to kick that one off and just give a bit of a sense as to how we've seen that, and then Anthony and Ryan, you might have something to add there as well. What we have seen is you do get the greatest benefits from Legatics when all parties are engaging with it. However, you do still get a lot of benefit even just streamlining the processes internally, and we do see a combination of usage for both externally facing and internally facing use cases. In terms of the resistance from the counterparties, quite often we actually, it won't necessarily be everyone that's involved in the transaction that will be engaging with the platform every single day, but we have had good levels of engagement from the counterparties on the transactions, and actually really love the transparency that it provides, you know, as the client, to be able to come in and see on a dashboard exactly what the status is of the deal. And you know, there've often been these deals which do have you know, multiple parties, and we've had everyone that's involved. We do have some features within the platform itself that provide for a bit of a bridge between the old process and the new, so that it's not a case of like everyone having to be within Legatics itself. So an example of this is a functionality to download a checklist. So you might have 5 parties that are involved in the transaction, 4 are really engaging with it, and you're actually just struggling to get engagement from the 5th party that's involved. Doesn't mean that the use of Legatics is can't be used for that party. You can actually quite easily download a Word version of the checklist, circulate that around, get to that one party who's not as involved, and then as the administrator, you can actually take some of the actions yourself. So we have still seen that if there is some resistance, if people aren't engaging with it fully, that it is really useful. But we have been really impressed actually with the level of engagement that we've had from counterparties on the platform. Anthony, Ryan, do you have anything to add to that question?
Yeah, I think you've got the ability to download it as a Word checklist, so it's never worse than the existing process and status quo. And I think the more that you use it and the more that parties engage with it, the more they get out of it. But I probably wouldn't say it's the case that the platform only makes sense to use if all parties engage with it. We see a lot of law firms getting benefit from it, even in some of those cases where other counterparties don't use it. I would say you get the most benefit when more counterparties engage, and usually we see where a transaction starts without kind of giving access to the other side. Quite often the conversation comes up like, oh, couldn't we just have access? And then usually that gets given out. So yeah, I'd say it's useful in a variety of use cases, and it provides us that level of continuity between the old and the new way of doing things to whatever level the transaction participants are happy with.
Thanks, Anthony. So a further question that's come up is, does Legatics offer any support? So I will start this one off as well. We absolutely do. So look, we acknowledge that this is a new way of doing things, and it does require some behavior change on the part of both lawyers, but also the clients. So we've got a combination of things. We've invested a lot in really fantastic self-help materials. So we have a whole knowledge base that's available to enable your lawyers or counterparties to be able to go in and get the materials that they need about how to get started, how to use some of the functionality as and when they need it. But what we also do is we do have a dedicated engagement and customer success team on the Legatics side that are there to support you as our customers to get going. And we engage both with whether it's the innovation team, some of the lawyers themselves that are planning the rollout, looking for use cases within your firm, but also in running some of the training, running the trainings internally, getting people up and running. And then from a support perspective, we do enable you, if you run into if a user runs into a challenge in the middle of the transaction, they can actually get in touch directly with a Legatics user, with a Legatics contact, to be able to talk them through how to resolve that query and support them in resolving it promptly.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's important to note that you've got the end user support, which is I don't know, I can't log in for a certain reason, and we're there 24 hours to help with those kinds of queries. But then there's a different type of support, which is for people who may have like an innovation role within a law firm, which is, how do I roll this out? What have you seen in terms of best practice? Can you provide any resources to get me started with a rollout? And I think that's something that we do a huge amount of, and we'll be doing an increasing amount of going forwards as well. And I think that's a really important part of the puzzle. So just because you've bought a piece of technology, it doesn't mean that all of your lawyers even know that piece of technology exists within the organization. And we really recognize the job that people who are responsible for rollouts of technology within law firms have to do there, and very varying levels of resource between firms we see as well, in terms of sort of how large those teams are, whether it's maybe a lawyer who has that as an additional part of their role and might be pressed for time, or whether there's an enormous innovation team with sort of data scientists who are asking us for data coming off the platform about where it's being used, where there's more opportunities to see it being used, what types of transaction they're doing, how the rates of those transactions are changing across the world, and how they can target their internal marketing around that. We see a huge variety in terms of what resource is available there, and I think we can support all of those different types of users and innovation roles and rollout roles in that journey as well.
Yeah, so I think to elaborate on that, what the benefit with Legatics is, we've been doing this for quite some time now, and we have seen firsthand, yes, some of the challenges that do come up when trying to roll out a new piece of technology within your firm, but also the successful means by which we've been able to overcome those barriers. So we take a very collaborative approach with our customers when planning the rollout, and at every stage, looking for the further opportunities when there are new product releases, if there are new use cases, new practice areas, and opportunities to expand there. We do also acknowledge that it's not a one size fits all. We've learned what we've learned from firms, but there are nuances when it comes to different firms. So we take that very consultative approach to really work with the firm to ensure success. It's not success for us, for you to bring in Legatics and for it to just sit there. We want it to be, effectively used, and for firms to get a really good return on investment from bringing Legatics in to their practice. Over to another product-related question. Where are servers hosted?
A good question. So our main server is located in the EU, in Ireland, in AWS's EWS1 region. We also have an instance in Australia, and the joys of us using Amazon is there are a number of different regions that are available. So if there are different data residency requirements that you have, we are able to support that. And if that's something you're interested in, reach out to us and we can discuss your options.
Thanks, Ryan. There is a question here about whether we have plans to integrate with HiQ.
So not currently, not in the immediate future, but that is something that is on our ideas section of our portal. So again, that's what I was saying before, that feedback is just so important to us. We really want to be guided by our customers and by our users as to what we should build next. And that is one of the cards that's sitting in our ideas portal, where anyone can go in and say, look, HiQ integration, it's really important to me. And I guess when you're doing that, what really does help me is why. Why is that really important to you? How would it help? So it means that when we do go and build, we can build something that's really useful for you and your users. So again, we just encourage that feedback to come in. We take it all, and and I look at every single one that does come in. So keep it coming.
Thanks, Ryan. Got a few more questions here, and do keep them coming in. If you've got further ones, we'll see how many we can continue to get through. So just to close off, there's more of a specific question around support for Legatics 2 to help you getting started. So we do have the knowledge base that is set up that already has a number of those materials. So I suppose two different approaches here. One is whether you are an existing customer or a new potential Legatics customer. So would encourage you at first instance, if you are a lawyer on this webinar, to get in touch with your innovation team, maybe check out your intranet, find out if you already have Legatics, and there'll be some information there. But do also feel free just to contact us directly through our website, legatics.com, and you can click the request a demo, and we can put you in touch if you are an existing customer with the relevant contact within your firm. For any of those who maybe don't have Legatics yet and are interested, then again, feel free to speak to your innovation team, but would encourage you as well just to get in touch with us directly. And there is absolutely support to help you get started, both from that knowledge base, but also we can help to coordinate trainings to get you up and running on some initial deals. Right, there's a question here about transitioning from Legatics 1 and the foreseen timeline for that. Ryan, do you want to give a little thing on that?
Yeah, sure. So we have a number of customers who have already made the full transition from Legatics 1 to Legatics 2. They saw the benefits of all the flexibility and all the different use cases that you have on the platform. So they have moved across. We have some guidance coming out later in the year around the timeline for moving off Legatics 1 onto Legatics 2. So stay tuned for that. But we're already seeing a number of customers making the switch, again, just for all those benefits that we showed on the demo. And we look forward to more customers joining us on the new platform.
Thanks, Ryan. Another product question here, so I'll hand straight back over to you. Can you reuse lists from previous matters if you're doing some repeat work for clients to save time?
Yes, you can. That was a feature that came out in our December version 2.6 release. We heard again from a bunch of users actually a request for this because they all said we normally start from a Word document and go save as and rewrite over the top of that. And that's what we look to enable with that feature. So you can start from any list, whether in your existing matter. So you've got, say, a CP checklist or a documents list you want to duplicate, go for it. Or it could be in a different matter and you want to bring that across and reuse it. You've absolutely got that functionality to really get you up and going much faster than you otherwise could. And then failing that, there is the Word table importer. So you can use the Word table importer to bring that data across, or the legal text importer. So there's lots of ways to get started really quickly on Legatics, including starting from previous lists.
Thanks, Ryan. And this, I think, did come in afterwards. It might have been a late joiner, so we'll quickly just answer this again. But there's been a question about the wet ink signing. So how can the platform accommodate wet ink signing? Some jurisdictions being handled in, some documents being handled in different jurisdictions.
Yeah, and this is on our immediate roadmap to build a wet ink signing tool for the 21st century. I once actually did this at A&O. I had 550 signature pages I was managing, which was not a fun process. So we're really looking forward to reimagining how this works in Legatics 2 and making this process just really seamless for you and your lawyers.
Thanks, Ryan. And there's a question here. Did I see project management templates as well? Can you customize those, for example, with statuses, etc.?
Yeah, the project management templates are, I think, the one I'm most excited about because, yeah, like I said before, a lot of law work is project management. I once did a deal with 50 different countries and about 150 transfers in those different countries. And a big part of my work was who were the different lawyers in the different countries on the deal. So those templates are all there for people to start from. There's one to store all the background documents in your list. There's another one to store all the company information. So you may be doing a big due diligence exercise and you need to store all the company names, the company numbers, the registered office for those companies. That information normally stored, in different Excel spreadsheet. You can't find the latest version, is a thing of the past with the platform. So those templates are there for you to start from, and you can see they're entirely flexible, so you can change them as you like. What we do have on our also immediate roadmap is the ability for customers to make their own templates to deliver to lawyers, and we're really looking forward to introducing that because we think it would be a great way for you to be able to deliver knowledge and best practice directly to your lawyers where they work rather than in separate locations. So excited to see where people take the project management. And on the point about statuses, again, once it's created, everything in that list is fully customizable. So if there is a status in one of the templates, you can delete the status, you can add new statuses, you can rename the status, you can set automatic actions on statuses. So it goes to, say, completed if certain actions occur. So you've got just full flexibility with all of those templates. Thanks,
Ryan. And I think we've got time for one more here. So a question about Legatics 1 and Legatics 2 again. So are Legatics 1 and Legatics 2 going to be maintained as separate products with different features, or will the new iteration replace the old one?
So the plan is at the moment, yes, they are separate products. Again, we've got guidance coming out in the next couple of weeks to explain to customers what the plan is around Legatics 1 and Legatics 2. So stay tuned for that.
Legatics 2 will ultimately replace Legatics 1. We're getting Legatics 2 to the point where there's nothing really that you could do on Legatics 1 that you can't do in Legatics 2. So Legatics 2 will ultimately be the future of Legatics.
Excellent. And with that, I think we'll let everyone go a couple minutes early, but just a huge thank you to everyone for taking the time to join us today. Please do follow up with us directly if you have any further questions. www.legatics.com is a good place. You can request a demo directly there. Yeah, thank you as well to Anthony and Ryan.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you to everybody for attending.